Welcome to Minerva Meets. I'm your host, Sonal Chandler, and this is episode 17. Today, we're going to be diving into how one company is using AI to enhance school safety. As a parent myself, this topic hits close to home because school safety isn't just in the news today and making headlines, it's a reality that affects families everywhere, every day. And with AI playing a bigger role in security, I'm really looking forward to learning more about our discussion and just learning about the product that my guests have today. So let me introduce them. William West and Stephen King. Welcome to the show. They are founders of a company called Protect Schools. Protect Schools is an early stage startup that leverages AI to enhance security technology, essentially making security more secure. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Well, why don't we start by each of you giving us a little bit of background about yourselves and how you got to this point. William, I'll let you go first, and then Stephen, if you don't mind going after him.
Great.
Sure. So I have a degree in artificial intelligence, but it was back in the 80s, which there wasn't very practical uses for that. So most of my career has been evolved as tech evolved from web to mobile, games, social, and then eventually virtual reality through being a consultant and also building businesses as an entrepreneur. And it was just November 2022 when OpenAI came out with ChatGTP that I was also asked to take a look at this technology and say, is there anything we can do in education technology that would work for this? And that's what started the whole process flowing. We focused on areas that we could make money. That was the original thing. It's like, where can we make money here? And so we were moving forward very quickly in that realm, but the school shootings just kept resonating. And then I was literally on a campus on UNLV talking to them about how AI could potentially use to stop human trafficking when there was a shooting in the building right next to us.
Oh
And
my
it was
goodness.
it was really a call to action. This whole thing started because of that, where we just put everything on pause, re-geared, opened up again about 60 days later, just focused on education.
Wow, that's amazing. And you know, I think you smiled. I know those of you that are listening to us can't see us, but you smiled when you talked about when you got into this. But it actually is tribute to the fact that AI has been around for a while, right?
Sure.
It's been around for a while, and with generative AI becoming popular, it's allowed all of us to take advantage of it. So thank you for being a pioneer in it.
Oh yeah, no, it's been there. You think of like Shazam and the fact that it can listen to any song and tell you what it is. That's early AI, but
Yes.
it was in that time when all of a sudden tools, and we'll talk about this later, but tools are readily available to use to build AI. And the
Mm-hmm.
horsepower was there with the GPUs coming out and such.
Yep.
So without those tools, a lot of companies can't really try to apply AI. And without the horsepower, it wouldn't matter if they did. So all this happened at one time.
Yeah.
And again, we'll talk about whether you run with AI or you sit and wait for AI and then you go with AI. And it's definitely an interesting dynamic time.
Stephen, how about you?
Yeah, so I have been working in education technology for a little over 5 years now. And I was the head of a company in education technology, working very closely with both K-12, colleges, universities. And then along with that, I am also a parent. And I would go onto campuses consistently, whether it was colleges or whether it was, K-12 schools, and experience, I guess, what I would consider an elevated level of concern for the
Mhm.
student safety. And it's typically every time something like a school shooting happens, you have such a high sense of concern for at least 2 weeks after that. And every time you drop your kids off at school, and yes, they have the gates and there's somebody there kind of watching them come through, but not really. And it's always just been very concerning for me. And I've walked onto campuses with two backpacks, for example, of equipment that I need to go service maybe a client or something like that. And no one seems to care, getting out of a
Yeah.
car, strapping on two backpacks, grabbing a drill out of your car, and then walking around campus right down to the main area is a little alarming to me that nobody would say anything about it. So for me, it's very close to home. And to do something about it has really been my whole purpose of why I'm here. And when I drop the kids off and you watch them walk through, and I would complain to the kids every day. I'm like, I cannot
Mm.
believe that this is, why aren't they doing more? And yes, I can go to the school board and I can get my 5 minutes in front of the board, but they're always all so overwhelmed. And I think many of us coming up through any type of level of leadership, or even once you get into the professional world, they say, don't just come with complaints, come with a solution, right?
Hmm.
And so that's where I'm at now. I finally have a solution. I'm a part of a solution. And instead of
Hmm.
just going and complaining and telling them to do something about it, I'm now offering a solution that enhances security on a level that I didn't think could exist, even a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, everything you just said about being a parent and dropping your child off at school just resonates with me so much because you're right, right? Like when you first hear about a school shooting happening and like 2 weeks after that, every day when I'm driving my children to school, this level of anxiety, it's just always there, and it's just heightened in that time when an event happens. And then as you see them getting out of the car and walking as you're driving away, that's like that worst feeling ever, right? And you're
Absolutely.
every single thought is just going through your mind. Am I going to see them again? Are they going to be safe? The fact that they have to go through these types of drills, right? I mean, I think the worst thing I ever had was a tornado drill, right? Or a
Right.
fire drill, right? But now it's so
Yep.
much more than that. And so I definitely resonate with what you're saying. And thank you so much for being here, both of you, and sharing this story. And hopefully we can get more people involved in this. Doing something is so important. Well, tell me a little bit and tell our audience about ProTech and the technology that you've developed and, what was the inspiration, apart from what you've shared. Tell us a little bit more.
Sure. What Protect is they're surveillance cameras that are
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah, right. And you see them in airports, and they're in schools and a lot of other areas. What they do right now is they watch everything going on, and then they send it to a recording device, and that's pretty much it. So the only real value that they provide is after something happens, you can go to the recording device and watch it reenact, maybe identify the people, whatever. But that process does nothing to actually stop the crime or help the person that's involved. So what we did is we
Mhm.
built an AI device that sits between the cameras and the recorder, and it uses behavioral recognition. So the video feeds come through it, and when it sees certain types of behaviors, such as a fight, or somebody fell, it's a medical emergency, of course, a weapon, unattended bag, eventually bullying, and those types of things, it flags that, it recognizes it right away, and it makes the people in the area aware that this is happening. This is really fundamental. It's because it's not just about guns. It's about all the other stuff. The guns obviously horrific. We talk about them a lot, but it's just 1% of all of the violence that takes place in schools that teachers have to deal with
Interesting.
every day. Right.
Yeah.
So you think about a teacher sitting in a classroom with 30 students and they hear a commotion out in the hallway. They don't really know what that is. It could be a fight. Somebody could have fell against a locker. It could be the first shot of a gun, which always gets everyone's attention, but you don't really know what it is. So you hear the second shot. And you're like, oh God, those are shots.
Right.
Um, so what we're doing is enabling that teacher when something happens to see what's happening via the video feeds and know exactly where it's happening. So if somebody fell down, they would know, they would see that somebody has fallen, they would know where it is, they could convene and try to help that person, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
If it was an active shooter, they would be able to see the person with the gun, know exactly where it is, and know which direction to take their kids to get out of the building. So I think the whole concept, which has evolved over time, is truly inspirational for what we're
Yeah.
trying to do.
So does that mean that each teacher is armed with a video device that shows them this?
It actually comes from their mobile phone.
Sure. Oh,
So
that's
it'd
right.
be an app on the mobile phone that sends a notification whenever it's necessary, much like LinkedIn or anything else would
Hmm.
would for you. So doing what I did is I did my best to design something that required the least amount of new technology and purchases as possible. So if we
Sure.
can work with a existing phone, then we do that. We work with existing cameras and recorders. We did that too. All we have to do is
Mhm.
add that middle piece, which is a very easy thing to do in order to hopefully rapidly accelerate the adoption of it by making it just easier.
Sure. And so you mentioned that it's more than just, an active shooter. And so was it that you had to train the model to recognize these other types of threats? And, what if a lot of false positives?
Steve, you want to take a shot at that one?
Sure. So with any AI model, the training for people who aren't familiar with that, the way to really enhance that model is to have humans involved, right? And to be able to say, yes, that is, or no, that isn't. And that's part of the alert system. And so the system would be designed to do, the machine learning there. And if we did have something that popped up and it was a non-threat, that's the beauty of having the app. And someone could
Mhm.
look at that and, maybe it's somebody on the football field, right? And so they just got tackled. Well, that's something you would expect. So you could just hit okay, it's okay, and then it sort of
Mhm.
trains a machine. And the more you do it, the better it will become. With any AI system, there's always going to be inequities about where you're placing it. And that
Mhm.
system, just like a human, has to understand and learn that environment. But the way we help it get there is through the humans that are there. And then you see this broadening of its capabilities and what we call reasoning.
Super interesting. And you mentioned bullying, and I'm very curious, how do you train a model on bullying? So, any insights there?
It's a nuance, and that's where we want to get to. We start with fights and aggressive actions. We can move then from to harassment, and then eventually achieve bullying. We've got some alternative methods, such as sort of peer reporting. That if the students see bullying, they have something they can indicate anonymously, so it
Mhm.
starts to recognize what the bullying looks like. That one's going to be the most difficult, but I think also one of the most rewarding ones. But the
Sure.
machine has to start learning and refine and to get to the nuances.
Right, right. Super fascinating. So how does this get implemented? Is there a lot of overhead that a school that they have to invest in, or does it plug into their existing surveillance systems? How does this
Yeah,
work?
it just plugs in. If you think about the typical network closet in a school, and
Yeah.
it's got these upward racks, and they have these very thin devices that slide in that are the servers
Hmm.
that do a variety of things. So we have an additional server that slides in, takes the existing recording surveillance system, and basically plugs one into the other. So now they both see the feeds coming through. And that's pretty much the simple part of it. And then of course
Hmm.
obviously teachers would have to install the apps, and you have to figure out who gets one indication.
Yeah.
Does everybody get it? On a shooting, probably everybody gets the indication. For a fight,
Hmm.
maybe it's just certain individuals, and such of that nature. What we've been doing, our plan right now is to do site surveys, so we get it right and take a
Sure.
look at the existing the school. What are they current? Where are the cameras? Are there any missing?
Hmm.
So that we configure it properly. This is really important, not just for K through 12, but for the colleges,
Yeah.
because the campuses are huge.
Yes.
You talk about most of the state campuses, California, Indiana. There's nine different campuses. There's 50,000 kids. There's all the campuses are multiple buildings. That
Yeah.
requires a little bit of a site survey consulting process to come up with something that
Sure.
gives them what they need, but also kind of transitions them into the cost of
Yeah.
doing the whole thing. Yeah.
I,
The other part that I will add to that, and I think is really important for people to understand, is that all of these facilities we're talking about, virtually all of them, have
Mhm.
a camera system in place. But the cameras are just recording, just like our Ring cameras do at our
Yeah.
houses. And then it just records, and you might go back and look at something after the fact, right? And
Hmm.
the idea here is, can we turn these cameras from wherever they're sitting to actively watching instead of passively recording? And
Right.
since they are already there, they're already on, let's capitalize on that technology and advance it with, any type of one of our servers that you could put in, and all of a sudden turn it into something that knows what to look for. So whether if
Hmm.
it's fighting and the aggressive behavior, if it's a fall, if it is a unattended bag that's been sitting there and it's recognized for more than whatever time limit you want to put on it, it would recognize that as well. And then obviously the weapons. So I think it's important for people to understand that you probably already have a system in place, but it's just sort of sitting there not doing much until after a
Yeah.
problem has occurred.
Yeah, I mean, in my world of cybersecurity, something I'm always telling small businesses is that let's move from being reactive to proactive, right?
Hmm.
And I think this is sort of the same thing, right? Being
Spot on.
active versus passive when it comes to the monitoring of, the environment that you're in.
Yeah. And
So I,
leveraging what we know, two of the big
yeah.
events that we saw early, one was the shooting at Michigan State, where
Hmm.
there were 8 kids shot. There was a picture of the guy at all 8 places. The camera was working. There was one in Maverick Stadium where a girl was abducted, and they had camera footage of her at every single point until she left. But unless somebody's actually staring at the monitors, that
Yeah.
specific monitor, right? And so you think about it, a school's got 150 cameras. Well, how many monitors is that? So you
Yeah.
can't, at best, maybe you're looking at 4 cameras. And if
Right.
you're lucky enough for it to be the right 4 cameras, we went to one stadium not too far from you, actually. And they have 500 cameras in the stadium, one person watching it. And
Oh,
they had turned down the feed for the warning alerts because it was annoying. So like the cameras are doing the job that cameras are supposed to do. We're taking advantage of that sort of intel that's just sitting there that isn't being used.
well, I was just thinking about like the manpower, right? Like the resources needed to watch 500 cameras. And if you just said that there was one person watching it, there's
Mm-hmm.
probably some fatigue that sets in at some point. You get a little complacent, or you start staring at one thing and then you lose sight of everything else that's going on. I kind of give it like the lifeguard effect, right? Like you have to be constantly rotating in order to make sure that you're alert, right? And
That's
so
exactly right.
if they only have one person doing that, I can't imagine that that's effective.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's yeah, that's the exact right point. The study is that after 22 minutes, the surveillance guy will miss 95% of all the activity. So it's just, your
Whoa.
lifeguard example is actually a pretty good one.
Hmm.
I've often talked about it, and to the clients, I'll say, imagine you had a security guy standing under every single camera in your school, and they
Hmm.
knew exactly what to look for. That's what we're providing. And I think the
Yeah.
lifeguard's got a better chance of seeing what's going on around them than the security guard in a school that may be sitting in the front of the school who can't possibly see what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And, if it's a student that has, it seems that what I hear lately with some of the school shootings is that it's a calculated plan, right?
Mhm.
So it could be something that's planned over a course of days, months, who knows how long, and that it's not just one day where all of a sudden this weapon is brought into the school, right? You just don't know how, what kind of plan the individual has put into place. And if the officer is, at the front of the school and this is all happening somewhere else, right? It's just you're never going to catch it, right? So, um, yeah.
Yeah, Stephen, you've brought it up a couple times about just how rapidly that happens and the challenge that we face regarding a shooting.
Yeah. I mean, you have your the this is has to be another tool to save lives when you look at it from that perspective.
Hmm.
A lot of time, every school has a safety plan, and to your point earlier, the students have to practice these and do these drills. And
Hmm.
for many of us in California, there's an earthquake drill, and it always used to be a fire drill, and we'd always have
Hmm.
to walk out and stand out and be safe or whatever it may be. And now it is this active shooter drill, and that, number one, just psychologically is terrible for
Yeah.
the students. And we talked earlier about us being concerned every time there's an active shooter. And every time we drop the kids off, it's like, is today the day? Well, guess what? They're the ones actually going into that facility.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
the emotional turmoil that they're experiencing also is crazy. And
Hmm.
so when you look at a calculated activity like this, you're right, they're putting some thought into it, they're planning it. And then there's always a shot fired, and maybe that shot is deadly, maybe it's not. But now you know. And how do you prevent that? Such as in Georgia, where they even more recently, you can just log in, you can see the map of where that person walked, and you
Yeah.
could have stopped them from that next shot and the next shot, or you could have taken action and gone right to that site to try and prevent whatever was going to happen next. For some, it will just be, I'm just going to do an act of violence and I'm done, right? And then they turn the gun on themselves. And then for others, you're going to see, I'm going to drag this out for as long as I can. And
Yeah.
they are often internal threats as well, right? It's not
Yeah.
an outsider coming in. It's somebody who kind of knows how to get past that first barricade with a
Mm-hmm.
weapon. And then they brandish the weapon once they know that they can do so and create harm.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just one of the other barriers. You can have weapons detections as you walk through the doors. You can have different types of monitors in place. This is one of these ways that we can enhance that to try and prevent that. And then the other thing is, where is the danger? Because
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to run to danger. You want to
Right.
run away from danger. And
Yeah.
so if we can provide, at least tell you, if nothing else, if all we did was say, here's where the danger is, and you knew to run the other direction, that on its own would be incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I'm listening to things in the news that local schools are implementing things like you mentioned metal detectors, or they're requiring clear
Mhm.
backpacks. All that
Mm,
is great, but when the event is actually happening, if you don't know, or if you can't do anything about that, right? Like there's something that I might have this completely wrong, but there's I think these buttons now that they can push, that teachers can push,
Mhm.
that gets the police to the school like within minutes of the event happening. But even that, right?
Yeah,
Like you still want to get ahead
it's
of that too, right?
yeah, it's usually too late, and we were actually literally just talking about that. The thing with the button though is you have to still see what's happening, or else
Yeah,
why would you push the button? How would you know to press the button?
right.
So it's not entirely the most adequate way to do it. I like the idea that we're sort of giving these teachers X-ray goggles.
Yeah.
they're already superheroes, right? So now we're giving them
Oh my
X-ray vision.
goodness. Yes.
So now when
Yeah.
they do hear something, they can see exactly what's going on, where it's happening, and then let them make a decision. And you don't get that with just the simply pushing a button, or even some of just the simple weapons detections.
Yeah.
We're hopefully then giving them much more information for them to make an informed decision.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm probably going to get criticized or get some bad comments for saying this, but I'd prefer them to have that than to have a gun themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
right.
But even then, this is the gun problem notwithstanding, right? Because every
Sure,
time this
sure,
happens, we hear all about
sure.
guns,
Yeah.
we hear about mental health, we hear thoughts
Yeah.
and prayers.
Yeah.
But even if they did have a gun, they still wouldn't know what to do until they
Yeah,
knew what to do,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if the school, that's what the school wants to do, we've allowed them to figure out what's happening, where is it happening, what's the reaction. That's totally their decision as to how they want to do
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm thinking in my mind of like a school campus, like an elementary, middle, or high school. But, when you think about like a college campus and how large they are and trying to pinpoint where it's happening and then
Mhm.
getting help there, I mean, that
Mhm.
could take upwards of 10, 15 minutes or more, right? I mean,
Yep.
it's crazy. So if I had this technology, how quicker we could move and take action.
Yeah,
And
it
that's the whole
synchronizes.
point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It synchronizes better. I mean, with the college
Yeah.
campuses, a lot of them have their own police force, so the resources
Mhm.
are there. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of, are they in the right place? And you look at, like, as a young woman on a college campus, and they put all these blue lights up there, so you have this panic
Yes.
button you can hit. Well, that's great as long as you're 10 feet away from the panic button when somebody comes running up to you. But
Yes.
if you're being chased across campus and we have the opportunity to recognize that and send the police to the right place to intercept,
Mhm.
then that would be value added. Now, of
Yeah.
course, what time of day is it? Are you both running to the same class? Why are they running? And that's where
Yeah.
Stephen talked about machine learning. It starts to get smarter and smarter to identify, yes, this is a potentially harmful situation. It
Sure.
is 2 o'clock in the morning. You are the only one in the park. This is the other person in the park. They are running towards you. Pretty good
Yes.
indication that this is probably not a good idea.
Yeah.
That we need to signal somebody to help you out.
I'm so glad you
And
brought
and
up
I would
those, sorry, I'm so glad you brought up those button things that, in the campus that you have to push. What are they
The
called?
blue light, yeah.
The blue light, because I can't tell you how many times I've walked by one of those when I was in college, and which was many, many moons ago, where I even at that point was like, "What are you gonna be like? Hold on." let me go push this button. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's like
Call
even
timeout.
having the mace in your hand. What are you going to be like, hold on and accidentally spray yourself, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just it's great to have it to make yourself feel good, but in a I've seen how I act in a panic, right? And I don't know if I would be as level-headed enough to be able to look for that blue button and then push it, right? It's
Hmm.
just,
Hmm.
yeah. You were going to say
Yeah,
something,
when
Stephen.
flight or flight kicks in,
Yeah.
it's not like the movies in any way, shape, or form.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, yeah, what I was going to say was when we were talking about the training of these, and we're talking about machine learning, are these two people running to class, or is one chasing the other?
Hmm.
And time of day, and all these things are parameters that you can start to build into it. But if it was my daughter at that school, and it was a false positive, but we looked at it to confirm,
Yeah.
I will volunteer to man that booth all day long and
Same here.
just hit false positive, no, no, and help it train, because I'd much rather have that than nothing for what's
Yeah.
happening right now.
Exactly. Completely
Good point.
agree. So I'm going to throw a question at you guys that I hear a lot of people allude to. Everyone's a little nervous about AI, right? I
Sure.
talk to a lot of people and they're like, "Oh, AI is going to take jobs," and I have to sort of walk them off the ledge. So let me ask you, is AI ready to do this type of work?
This type of work, yeah, yeah, it's proven it's working. And AI again is a sort of it's like, are people ready for this? There's a lot of different types of people,
Yes.
a lot of different types of AI. What we are
Mhm.
doing and Chat GTP have absolutely nothing to do with each other. So there's lots of
Right.
different ways that
Right.
AI is being used. And
Mhm.
yeah, in terms of jobs, are people going to lose their jobs? No, people who don't understand AI are going to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
you know,
Thank
but
you for reiterating and
the
underscoring everything I've been saying. So yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
it's evolving really fast, and it's going to be interesting. Most of the schools that we've talked to, Stephen mentioned they have safety policies already, but a lot of them also have AI committees. We heard
yeah,
them say very vocally when we were at the conference in California that they got bowled over when mobile phones and social media came out. They didn't prepare, they didn't think about what it was going to be, and then it got out the gates and they couldn't get it back again. And they don't want
right.
that to happen with AI. So
Yeah.
most of the schools that we've been talking to are very proactive. They've got committees that have experts coming in to make sure that they can get ahead of what it is, not just academic integrity of saying,
Hmm.
oh, ChatGTP wrote the paper and the kid turned it in as if it was his own,
Hmm.
but all the other ways that AI potentially could actually be leveraged and help
Hmm.
them in the future. So that's helpful that
Yeah.
everybody's already thinking about it. Now, most of them don't know much more than ChatGTP because what they
Hmm.
see is what they hear about.
Hmm.
But they're growing in their awareness. I live with a teacher, so I'm hearing this firsthand.
Well, it's funny you say that because a lot of the work that I do is around AI and really at a much smaller and different scale. But um, my first question to them is we're talking about going beyond ChatGPT, right? Like we want to make sure that, that you've got a strategy in place, that you are thinking about what else and how else can you use this in your organization to be more efficient, to be more competitive. And it's just nice to really think about AI and have a conversation about it in a different way than what your typical corporate or small business might leverage it, right? This is way beyond that in my mind.
Yeah.
And this is a
Uh,
tool to use, right? So if you
Yeah.
look at how we used to calculate things and do math and do it on paper and things like that, and then
Hmm.
all of a sudden we could use Microsoft Excel, right? Or maybe we take it to the next level and you look at something like QuickBooks, where people are using accounting tools. It's the tool you use to improve what you're currently doing. And so
Hmm.
this is not a substitute for people. Right now, we don't have enough people to secure our children. There's
Yeah.
not enough people to do it. So this is a great utilization of what has been developed and using AI to
Hmm.
enhance what we just don't have the capacity to do yet. And I don't know
Yeah.
that we ever would, as humans.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. What is the learning curve like? So, I have it implemented in my school. I have the app on my phone. Is there a learning curve?
There's not much for the teacher standpoint,
Mhm.
and we would provide training and orientation and those types of things, help desk. And then on the back end, we've designed it so that their existing IT integrators can install it. They don't have to have us install it.
Okay.
It's a simple edge device. They're already maintaining all those devices for probably an entire district.
Hmm.
I look at mine back in Bloomington, Indiana. There's one company there. They manage all the schools in that
Yeah.
region.
Yeah.
So let them do it. We don't have to.
Hmm.
We don't have to do. We teach them, and then we provide the resources so that the teachers understand how to make it work, and really try to minimize the adoption cycle as best we can.
Gotcha. And what kind of challenges have you guys seen in an implementation, or do you anticipate, if any?
Oh, what do we anticipate?
I wonder if it has anything to do with adoption of like learning to actually report or respond to um, some type of alert that comes up.
So if I could address that, as someone who's been working in ed tech
Hmm.
directly with school systems, one of the biggest challenges when you introduce any new type of technology is you have to have full adoption from everybody who's going to be using it. So let's say I am a superintendent or even a principal of a school, and I find a new platform that I think all the teachers should be using. It's really going to improve efficiencies. It's going to make life easier for everybody. It's going to make grading papers better, but nobody knows how to use it yet. So
Yeah.
I'm going to purchase it. I'm going to bring it in, and then I'm going to say, "Hey, everybody, I want you to start using this." Well, we all know teachers are overworked, underappreciated, and their days are spent, crammed every minute doing something
Yeah.
to get their work done. And so even if you bring something in that could help them, there's going to be a learning curve. And when are they going to have the time to do that? Are you going to set aside a professional development day? Is it going to be easy to implement? And a lot of times there's going to be pushback because they don't have time for this. They don't see the
Yeah.
value in, do I have my method? Just let me keep doing what I'm doing. It works in my system. Everything's okay.
Hmm.
Here you have a new system that it's really unusual for somebody to look at this and say, I don't understand the value of this.
Yeah.
They instantaneously, because it's not just students and us as parents that are concerned about safety when we walk onto the campus. The
Right.
teachers, the superintendents, the principals, they are all very concerned, and particularly the teachers, because they might be a first target.
Yeah.
So the value of this, you don't have as much apathy about, well, what I'm currently doing is working because
Yeah.
we know that what's currently out there doesn't work. So you have pretty quick agreement that, hey, yeah, this is great. The other part is we all use our phones and we all use apps all day long. We're all hitting like on whatever Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever thing you
Yeah.
rely on mostly for your news feeds. It's very similar to that. So we're not deviating much from what people are already used to doing.
Hmm.
And then as far as the acknowledgement, we all grasp this pretty quickly on the value of what it's going to bring.
Yeah. And let's be honest, we're talking about life. Right? I
Right.
mean, ultimately, if you've got to question that, then maybe there's some other things that we need that person might need. But yeah, it's the
That's exactly
value
right.
of life, right? Um, I'm curious because you mentioned that you guys do a site survey. Tell me a little bit more about that.
It's our focus would be on the location of the existing cameras,
Hmm.
mapping that out. Because as I mentioned, the app's intent is to allow you to see what's going on and also know where it is. So you have to
Hmm.
have it, map each one of the cameras to a location in the building. Look at the server room, see what technology they're using, make sure it's compatible. We're pretty compatible with just about everything, but you never know
Yeah, yeah.
what might happen. They could be several years late in upgrading their equipment, and so we have to do some extra steps.
Which is a
Um,
true problem, by the way, right? Which is,
right.
a lot of people
Yeah.
love staying on those older machines.
Oh, as long as they can. Well, I'm the same way. I don't want to trade in my Mac until it actually does not work again. Then I'll finally buy another
Yeah.
one.
We won't call
Um,
Southwest Airlines out, but
Now, but it's assessment, and some of it could be easy. Going back to Bloomington, any one of those schools would be a couple hour walk through, no big deal. But
Mhm.
one of the schools that Steven's working with out on the East Coast, it's like 140 acres. There's 30 buildings. There's a working farm. It's a whole
Oh,
vocational
yeah.
training type of thing. It's got a penitentiary over here or a highway over here.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that site survey be a little bit more complicated to
Sure.
make sure
Yeah.
we find out exactly where we want this to work and what do we want it to do in those different areas.
Nice. So we talked about, where you guys are today. Tell me a little bit about where you want ProTech to go. What's your vision like for expansion and just future developments?
I guess that, two directions. One is just continue to broaden our capabilities within schools,
Mhm.
trying to take a look at the difficult stuff. We mentioned bullying, but mental health is one. And what are some of the other challenges that they face that we think we can do this? We're capable of doing with AI, professional development for teachers and a number of things of
Mhm.
that nature. So we'll continue to do that, and then we'll look at other markets as well. We're already focused on stadiums because schools and colleges all have them.
Mhm.
They're vulnerable areas because while the school is nearly 100% of people that are supposed to be there,
Yeah.
stadiums are 100% of people that are from just showing up, and they have very unique
Mhm.
needs. I love the idea of subways and even the Olympics for the
Yeah.
future. So
Yeah.
as we perfect this and as it works, it's anywhere where there's a large enclosure with a lot of people,
Sure.
and nefarious things can occur. First
Yeah.
and foremost, it's all about the schools. One of the technologies that we're looking at that really excites me is using more microwaves instead of visual. The big
Mm.
challenge now is if they don't have the metal detectors, is that the weapon, unless you can see it, is concealed and you don't recognize it till it's out. Well,
Right.
with the microwaves, and it is a very new technology, but it can actually see through and it would recognize the weapon even if it was inside somebody's coat. Um,
Sure.
so
That's
a,
super cool.
a lot of exciting things in AI, and we'll cherry pick as new things come out
Yeah.
if it offers value to the teachers.
I do want to tell our audience, not certainly not insulting anybody's intelligence, but you're not talking about the microwave in the kitchen. I just want to be very clear. Did you want to give a quick little definition so that our audience understands what you're talking about?
Just microwaves instead of visual waves. It's a device in the ceiling. It's looking at the doors or it's looking in other places, and it's looking. It's very much like what you walk through at the airport.
Right, right. I'm curious, are you guys, looking at healthcare? Because I could see so many different use cases.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've been to the school board association meetings,
Hmm.
and a lot of people are doctors or hospital staff and things like that. And that's
Sure.
the first thing they ask is, oh, this is great for the schools. Hey, what about my hospital? And
Yeah.
some of the things, it's definitely, as William said, any place you've got an enclosed area where you're concerned about safety for others, it's a big thing. One of the areas of concern would be a unattended bag, for example, if somebody came in and left something there. We saw
Hmm.
that recently down in New Orleans when the issue happened,
Yeah.
and the gentleman took his truck through. But prior to that, he'd gone around and sat some coolers out that if had they blown up, they would have taken on a lot more people, but nobody knew they were there.
Oh,
So
wow.
if you'd had a system like this in place, you would have been able to see that you have this unattended cooler, and authorities could have taken action against that. Now, luckily, they
Yeah.
never, they never blew up, but that was
Hmm.
something that then you have in the hospitals, if somebody falls and no one is there to see it, it's like if a tree and falls in the forest and nobody hears it, does it really make a sound?
Right.
And that's a concern. And it was just about a month and a half ago where there was a facility, a treatment facility, and one of the patients went out onto a balcony
Oh.
out on the upper deck area. And I don't know if they snuck out. I don't know the full story of it, but they got locked out there. And this is, a month and a half ago, we
Mhm.
were having extreme cold and everything. And they ended up passing away because they couldn't get back in the building.
Oh my
And so you can
goodness.
imagine if they would have fallen down, if they fell out there,
Mm-hmm.
eventually they would have fallen, right? Just because you fall over because you're out there so long. Cameras would have picked that up and sent an alert that you have somebody out there.
Yeah,
So hospitals, if somebody falls, you've got to know where that's at, particularly if it's a stairwell. But if a patient, there's a significant amount of liability of not taking action against the fallen patient. And so,
sure.
yes, these are areas where people are inquiring or sending inquiries to us about
Yeah,
right now.
that's super exciting. Used to work in healthcare data science and studied the aging population and just learned a lot about elderly care and in-home health and some of the horror stories that you hear about patients that are in homes and in nursing homes and things like that. And I could see where a technology like this would really be advantageous in making sure that care is provided in the right way and that people are actually taken care of, right? So,
100%. The reason we had to delay this podcast on my end is because I was up taking care of my 86-year-old mother who had taken
oh,
a fall.
oh my
And
goodness, so sorry.
so she's okay. She's recovering from that. She had to yell and yell for some time before somebody heard her to come give her aid.
Yeah.
Now, she was at her own home, and that was its own situation. But if you can
Hmm.
imagine that were to happen at a home or an assisted living facility, that would be terrible. And
Yeah.
like teachers, they are overworked and underappreciated to a degree, and there's a sense of fatigue with that
Yeah.
group. And to be able to help them out with a tool like this would do everybody a favor, in my opinion.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I think there's the other side of this too, where you hear a lot of, elderly abuse. And,
Right,
it's a problem. And then there's the how do you prove that? And you need to still have the care, right? Because as a
right,
working adult, you can't just leave your job and, you know, be okay with it, right? At some point, there's going to be consequences. And so
Right.
yeah,
to have that technology in place so that those situations can be monitored correctly would be amazing.
right.
Yeah. So when an incident happens, a couple of last questions. When an incident happens, do you guys sort of swarm the incident in terms of the data and try to collect as much as you can to teach your models?
The training part comes from pulling data on a consistent basis. So it
Okay,
wouldn't be on an event basis, maybe like on a monthly basis or an
got
ongoing
it.
basis,
Got it.
um, something of that nature. Yeah.
Okay. Well, every time I have guests on the podcast, I always like to ask them to give us three takeaways around AI that can inspire our audience to hopefully dabble a toe in it if they haven't already jumped in. So any advice that you can give our audience about AI and its role in security would be great. I'll open the floor and let either one of you go.
Stephen, I'm going to ask you to go first.
So the first thing I would say is do not fear it,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
take the time to understand it. We're at the beginning stages of what people call AI. We've been doing these kind of things for quite some time, but the deep learning, the neural networks, and the things that are really allowing the machines to develop and understand what we want them to understand is in its infancy right now.
Yeah.
So no one is they're like, it's not too far gone where people should ignore it and say, well, it's already here. I guess I already missed the boat. That's not true. It's just beginning
Hmm.
on some levels, and just do a little bit of research and listen to things. You'll be there. The other thing is, this is not something that replaces humans. There is no way that any of this can be done without the human element. But it just goes back to what tools are we using to make our life that much easier. And if you think about, I use the tool about Excel or something like that, but think
Hmm.
about builders who, used to have hammers and they would sit there all day, and so to put up the framing on a house would take a few days. And now they have these nail guns and they can frame up a house in a single day because they're using a
Yeah.
new tool that helps them do their job more efficiently. This is no different. And when you look at what AI can do as a tool for you, you will see that it can really enhance what you're currently doing, not replace you.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah, and to follow up on that, and you know, you and I are from the Midwest, and they always say if you don't like the weather, stick around, it'll change. Um, that's the you know the AI thing. It's a decision, an interesting variable that we've never had to work with before, which is the timing of when to decide to do it. And I kind of say, like, if you're going from point A to point B and you're on a bike and you're next to a
Mhm.
railroad track, you have three decisions. You can just ride your bike from A to B and ignore what's going on the track, or you can ride your bike until the train catches you, and then you just get on the train and go. Or you can sit there and just save your energy and your money and wait for the train to show up and then get on. Uh,
Right.
we several times tried something in AI and wasted a lot of time and money doing it, only to have something happen 3 months later that completely eliminated our need to do that. You know,
Mhm.
or just gave us the thing for. So, for example, we talk about making models. You know,
Yeah.
models that know what fights look like, models that know what falls look like, and such. Well, now there's a robust library of models out there. We just go and
Mhm.
pick the one that we want, and so we get to start with something and then move on top of it instead of building it. And that's literally like in an 18-month evolution, this happened. So
Yeah.
sometimes when it comes to AI, don't be afraid, but maybe also assess, is now the time, or should you wait a little bit and see what happens?
Yeah, and so I love that. I love the no fear and be curious, right? Is really what I'm hearing you guys say.
Yeah,
And I think that both of those are just so important. If you want to embrace innovation, right? Because if you want to be innovative, you've got to be curious and you've got to know that at some point there's going to be bumps along the road, but if you fear them, you won't get over them, right? So just finding ways around or over them. So
right.
really appreciate you guys coming and being on the show and being a guest and telling us your story. This is just so amazing, and I'm just going to continue to follow you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Could you please tell our guests how they can find you, whether you're on LinkedIn or your website, if they want to get in touch with you?
Well, we're both on LinkedIn. I'm under Captain West in LinkedIn.
All right.
And then the email is simply west at protechschools.com. And that's the best way.
Stephen, what is your LinkedIn?
Yep. So I'm also on LinkedIn, and I'm not the Stephen King that people might look for on LinkedIn, but I'm definitely there. And I'm STL King 21 on LinkedIn. So St. Louis roots are in my call letter. So you can just think about the St. Louis airport. If you want to come see me, fly to St. Louis, right? So STL King 21 is my handle on LinkedIn. I'm there. And then king at protechschools.com is the way to get me there. And then we're also in end stages on, well, we already have the website, but we're transferring servers. So once we get the new server up and running, we'll post that on our LinkedIn as well.
Wonderful. And I will put all this in the show notes as well so everyone knows how to get in touch with you. I just want to remind people if you're interested in getting curious and over your fears of AI, you can reach out to Minerva at let's talk at minervaconsultinginc.com. You can go to our website at minervaconsultinginc.com. And before I sign off here, I'd love to ask our listeners to take three next quick steps. Subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a new episode. Leave a rating and add a comment. Thank you again, guys. I really appreciate you being here.
Appreciate the invitation.
You
Thank you.
bet. Thank you.